Commander Jake Morrison stood at the viewing deck of Alliance Station 7, watching the stars shine through the massive windows. Today marked 200 years since humans signed the sacred truce of Kepler Station. The peace treaty had ended. The bloody First Contact Wars and brought humanity into the galactic community as full members. Jake adjusted his dress uniform and checked his watch. The celebration would begin soon. Representatives from dozens of alien species had gathered to honor the anniversary. The Zephyrians, once humanity's greatest enemies, now served alongside humans on joint missions across the galaxy. "Beautiful view, isn't it?" Admiral Lisa Carter joined him at the window. Her gray hair was perfectly styled for the ceremony, and her medals caught the starlight. She had spent 30 years building relationships with alien species, always believing that peace was stronger than war. "Makes you think how far we've come," Jake replied. "My grandfather fought in the Contact Wars. He would never have imagined this." Lisa nodded. "The truce saved us all. Without it, we might have destroyed each other." The communication panel near them suddenly burst to life. Emergency signals flooded the station's main channels. Jake rushed to answer the first transmission. His face went pale as he listened. "Admiral, you need to hear this," Jake said, his voice shaking. The voice on the comm belonged to Captain Ben Rogers from the patrol ship Defender. Static filled the transmission, making his words hard to understand. "Alliance Station 7, this is Captain Rogers. We have reached the New Haven system. There is nothing left. I repeat, there is nothing left. The entire colony has been destroyed." Lisa grabbed the communicator. "Ben, what do you mean destroyed? What happened to the 3 million people?" "Admiral, they're all dead. Every single person. The planet's surface is burned black. We're detecting radiation signatures from banned plasma weapons. The attack patterns match Zephyrian battle doctrine." Jake felt his stomach drop. New Haven was one of humanity's oldest colonies, a peaceful farming world that had never posed a threat to anyone. More emergency signals came through the station's systems. Green Valley Colony reported massive explosions before their transmissions cut out. Harmony Station sent a desperate message about Zephyrian warships attacking civilian transports. Each report brought worse news. Dr. Amy Foster ran into the communications center, her research files scattered in her arms. She had been working with Zephyrian scientists for months, studying their culture and biology. "The Zephyrians I work with disappeared 3 days ago," she said breathlessly. "They took all their equipment and deleted their research files. I thought it was strange, but now we know why," Lisa finished grimly. President Kate Sullivan's image appeared on the main screen, broadcasting from Earth. Her face looked tired and angry. "Citizens of Earth and the colonies," she began, "I must inform you that 12 of our Outer Rim colonies have been attacked by Zephyrian forces. Early reports indicate massive civilian casualties. We are demanding an immediate explanation from the Galactic Council." Jake watched the president's speech with growing horror. 12 colonies meant millions of dead humans. These weren't military targets. They were homes, schools, and farms. Captain Rogers sent another transmission from the ruins of New Haven. "Admiral, we found some survivors in deep space. They were in mining ships when the attack began. They saw everything. The survivors' testimonies painted a terrifying picture. Zephyrian fleets had appeared without warning, using weapons banned by galactic law. They had specifically targeted hospitals, schools, and civilian shelters. Some witnesses reported Zephyrian soldiers taking trophies from human bodies. Dr. Foster discovered that her research partner, a Zephyrian named Korth, had been copying her files about human defensive capabilities. All her work on human psychology, military tactics, and colony layouts had been sent to the Zephyrian military command. "They used me," she whispered, staring at the evidence on her computer screen. "Everything I taught them about human behavior, they used it to plan these attacks." Within hours, similar reports came from research stations across the galaxy. Zephyrian scientists had been gathering intelligence on human weaknesses for months. maybe years, Admiral Carter called an emergency meeting with all human military commanders. The conference room filled with angry and confused officers who had trusted their alien allies. "How could we miss this?" demanded Colonel Sam Hayes. "We've been working side by side with these creatures for decades." "Because we wanted to trust them," Lisa replied. "The truce taught us to see them as partners, not threats." Jake pulled up tactical displays showing the pattern of attacks. "Admiral, look at this. They hit our furthest colonies first, the ones with the smallest populations. They're testing our response time." The evidence was clear. This wasn't a random act of violence or a misunderstanding. The Zephyrians had planned these attacks carefully, studying human defenses and choosing their targets for maximum psychological impact. President Sullivan appeared on screen again, this time speaking directly to the military commanders. "I've just finished meeting with the Galactic Council," she said, her voice tight with controlled rage. "They claim they need time to investigate these attacks. They refuse to condemn the Zephyrians until they have more information." Jake couldn't believe what he was hearing. "More information? We have 12 dead colonies." "It gets worse," the president continued. Council Speaker Vex suggested that perhaps humanity had violated the truce in some way, justifying a defensive response from the Zephyrian Empire. The room fell silent. After 2 centuries of faithful service to the galactic community, the Council was suggesting that humanity deserved to be attacked. Dr. Foster looked up from her research. "I've been analyzing Zephyrian communications from the past year. There are patterns here that suggest coordination with other species. The Altarians stopped sharing research data 6 months ago. The Centauri delegation has been asking strange questions about human population centers." "Are you saying this goes beyond the Zephyrians?" Lisa asked. "I think this betrayal runs much deeper than we imagined," Amy replied. Captain Rogers sent his final report from the New Haven system. "Admiral, we've completed our search. Final count shows 2.8 million confirmed dead, 200,000 missing and presumed dead. No survivors found planetside. The Zephyrians were thorough." Jake stared at the casualty numbers on the screen. In one day, humanity had lost more people than in some entire wars, and the galaxy's response was to ask for patience and understanding. Admiral Carter stood before the assembled officers and made a decision that would change everything. Effective immediately, all human forces are to assume defensive positions. No human ship travels alone. All joint operations with alien species are suspended pending further review. President Sullivan's final message of the day was broadcast across human space. She stood in the council chambers, surrounded by alien delegates who refused to meet. Her eyes. For 200 years, humanity has honored the sacred truce. We limited our military growth, restricted our territorial expansion, and trusted in galactic justice. Today, that trust has been shattered along with the lives of millions of our people. She looked directly into the camera, speaking to every human in the galaxy. "The Council asks us to be patient while they investigate. They ask us to show restraint while our children lie dead in the ruins of their homes. They ask us to trust the same system that allowed this massacre to happen." Her voice grew harder. "I say to the galaxy, you have seen humanity at peace for 2 centuries. You have seen us follow your rules, respect your traditions, and limit our strength for the common good. Perhaps you have forgotten what we were like before the truce. Perhaps you need a reminder." The transmission ended, leaving Alliance Station 7 in darkness. Jake looked out at the stars and wondered if humanity would ever feel safe among them again. The sacred truce of Kepler Station was broken, and with it, the chains that had held back humanity's true potential. 2 weeks had passed since the massacre of the outer colonies. Ambassador John Parker walked through the corridors of the Galactic Council building, his footsteps echoing in the empty halls. Most alien delegates avoided him now, as if humanity's tragedy might be contagious. He entered the main chamber where the Council was preparing to deliver their verdict on the Zephyrian attacks. The circular room held representatives from 47 species, each sitting in their designated areas. The human section felt painfully small compared to the massive Zephyrian delegation. Council Speaker Vex, a tall creature with 4 arms and silver skin, called the session to order. His voice carried no emotion as he read the official statement. After thorough investigation, this council finds that the Zephyrian Empire's actions against human colonies were regrettable but justified responses to alleged treaty violations by humanity. John shot to his feet. What violations? You have provided no evidence of any human wrongdoing. Speaker Vex ignored him and continued reading. The evidence suggests that human military buildup in the outer sectors violated the territorial restrictions of the sacred truce. The Zephyrian Empire acted within their rights to defend their borders. Defend their borders? John's voice echoed through the chamber. They murdered 3 million civilians. They used banned weapons on farming colonies. The Altarian delegate, an insect-like creature with multiple eyes, clicked his mandibles. The human representative grows emotional. Perhaps this proves their species lacks the judgment for civilized discourse. Several alien delegates made sounds of agreement. John looked around the chamber and realized that none of them cared about the dead humans. To them, humanity was just another minor species that could be sacrificed for political convenience. Meanwhile, on Earth, General Mike Turner studied intelligence reports in his underground command center. His team had been working around the clock to understand how the attacks had been coordinated so perfectly. "Sir, we've found something disturbing," reported Commander Steve Walsh, head of Human Intelligence Operations. He activated a holographic display showing communication intercepts. "We've been monitoring alien diplomatic channels since the attacks. The Zephyrians aren't acting alone. There's a shadow council of elder species that approved these attacks months ago." General Turner studied the intercepts. The communications were coded, but human computers had broken the encryption. The messages revealed a conspiracy that went to the highest levels of galactic government. According to this, they've been planning to eliminate humanity for over 50 years, Steve continued. The truce wasn't meant to bring us into galactic civilization. It was meant to contain us until they could find a way to destroy us. The files showed that humanity's rapid technological advancement had frightened the established powers. In just 2 centuries, humans had gone from a primitive species to one of the most innovative in the galaxy. The older civilizations saw this as a threat to their dominance. Captain Helen Davis led her Special Forces team through the ruins of Harmony Station. The space station had housed 50,000 humans before the Zephyrian attack. Now it was a tomb floating in the darkness of space. "Movement in Sector 7, reported Sergeant Danny Cooper through the comm system. Helen's team moved carefully through the twisted metal corridors. They found a group of Zephyrian soldiers still on the station, collecting human artifacts and body parts as trophies. "They're treating our people like hunting prizes," Danny whispered, his voice filled with rage. Helen watched through her scope as the Zephyrians laughed while examining human skulls. One of them was wearing a necklace made from human fingers. Another had collected children's toys, apparently as souvenirs of their massacre. "Take them alive if possible," Helen ordered. "Command wants prisoners for questioning." The brief firefight ended with 3 Zephyrians captured and 2 dead. The prisoners revealed that hunting humans had become a popular sport among their species. They broadcast their kills across Zephyrian networks, competing to see who could collect the most interesting trophies. Back on the council station, Ambassador Parker made one final attempt to reach the alien delegates. He had spent days meeting with individual species, trying to build support for justice. The Centauri representative, Ambassador Krell, met with John in a private chamber. His blue skin was marked with traditional tattoos that indicated high rank in his society. "I sympathize with your loss," Krell said, but his tone was cold. "However, the Zephyrian Empire controls 300 star systems. They are powerful allies. Humanity controls only 50 systems and has limited military strength. John realized what Krell was really saying. You're choosing them because they're stronger. We are choosing stability over chaos, Krell replied. Your species is young and unpredictable. The Zephyrians offer order. Similar conversations happened with other species. The Valdorians claimed that humans were too aggressive for their own good. The Helix Federation suggested that humanity's rapid expansion threatened galactic balance. Each species had a different excuse, but the message was the same. Humanity was expendable. Dr. Amy Foster worked late in her research lab, analyzing years of alien interactions with humans. She had discovered that the betrayal was more systematic than anyone imagined. They've been sabotaging us for decades, she told Admiral Carter during their secure communication. Every joint research project has been compromised. They've stolen our technology, copied our military plans, and studied our weaknesses. Amy's analysis showed that alien scientists had been deliberately slowing human research progress. They had given humans flawed data, corrupted experimental results, and misdirected entire fields of study. The quantum drive project that failed 3 years ago, Amy continued. The Zephyrians gave us fake equations. The medical research that killed those test subjects? Altarian sabotage? They've been crippling our development while learning everything about us. President Sullivan called an emergency session of Earth's Parliament. The Great Chamber was packed with representatives from every human colony and world. Their faces showed the same mix of grief and rage that had been building for weeks. Fellow humans, the president began, the Galactic Council has made their position clear. They will not provide justice for our dead. They will not punish the Zephyrians. They will not even acknowledge that a crime was committed. The chamber erupted in angry shouts. Representatives demanded military action. Others called for complete withdrawal from galactic society. President Sullivan raised her hand for silence. We face a choice that will define our species' future. We can accept this injustice and remain part of a system that views us as expendable. Or we can remember who we were before we agreed to limit ourselves. She activated a holographic display, showing human military capabilities from before the truce. The images showed massive fleets, weapons that could crack planets, and soldiers who had fought against impossible odds. For 200 years, we have followed their rules. We limited our fleet sizes, restricted our weapon development, and placed trust in galactic law. We did this because we believed in peace and cooperation. The president's voice grew harder. They have shown us that this galaxy does not value peace. It values power. They do not respect cooperation. They respect strength. General Turner appeared on the display, broadcasting from his command center. Madam President, our intelligence confirms that this attack was planned by a coalition of alien species. They view humanity as a threat that must be eliminated. The Zephyrian attack was just the beginning. President Sullivan looked directly at the cameras, speaking to every human in the galaxy. The sacred truce of Kepler Station bound us to limit our military strength and territorial expansion. It required us to seek council approval for new weapons and ship designs. It made us dependent on alien goodwill for our security. She paused for effect. As of this moment, I am formally withdrawing humanity from the sacred truce. All restrictions on human military development are hereby lifted. All limits on territorial expansion are removed. All requirements for council approval are canceled. The chamber fell silent as the full meaning of her words sank in. For 2 centuries, the galaxy has seen humanity at peace. They have grown comfortable with humans who follow rules, respect boundaries, and trust in alien justice. They have forgotten what humans are like when we stop holding back our true nature. Captain Helen Davis and her team watched the president's speech from their ship. Around them, the bodies of dead humans floated in space, victims of alien cruelty. About time, Helen muttered. President Sullivan's final words echoed across human space. To the Galactic Council, to the Zephyrian Empire, and to every species that stood by while our children were murdered, You wanted to see what happens when humans are threatened. You wanted to test our resolve. Her eyes blazed with determination. Your test begins now. 6 months after President Sullivan withdrew humanity from the sacred truce, Admiral Ryan Blake stood on the bridge of the warship Vengeance. The massive vessel was unlike any ship the galaxy had ever seen. Its hull was black as space itself, and weapons lined every surface. "All ships report ready, Admiral," reported Captain Maria Santos from her stealth destroyer Phantom. Her voice came through secure channels that alien technology could not detect or intercept. Ryan looked at the tactical display showing his fleet. 50 ships surrounded him, each one built with technology that humans had developed in secret during their centuries of forced peace. The aliens thought they knew human capabilities. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Target is the Zephyrian patrol fleet in the Kronos system," Ryan announced to his captains. 12 enemy ships, standard formation. They think they're hunting more human colonies. Dr. Tony Kim worked frantically in his laboratory aboard the flagship. For decades, he had been forced to hide his weapons research from alien inspectors. The truce had required all human military technology to be shared with the Council for security purposes. Now he could finally use his true innovations. "Admiral, the new plasma cannons are ready," Tony reported. "These weapons learn from each shot. Every time the enemy adapts their shields, our weapons adapt faster." Engineer Lucy Wright monitored the ship's quantum engines from the engineering deck. The aliens had no idea that humans had mastered faster-than-light travel decades ago. While alien ships took days to cross star systems, human vessels could jump across the galaxy in minutes. "Jump coordinates locked," Lucy announced. "We'll arrive 30 seconds before they detect us." The human fleet vanished from space and reappeared in the Kronos system directly behind the Zephyrian patrol. The alien ships had no time to react before human weapons opened fire. The battle was over in less than 5 minutes. 12 Zephyrian warships became burning wreckage, while the human fleet suffered no damage at all. The aliens' energy shields, which had protected them for millennia, were useless against weapons that adapted to any defense. Captain Santos piloted her stealth destroyer deep into Zephyrian space. The Phantom was completely invisible to alien sensors, using technology based on human understanding of quantum physics. She could move through enemy fleets without being detected. 3 military bases destroyed, she reported to Admiral Blake. "They still don't know I'm here." Colonel Sam Hayes prepared his Marines for the first ground assault on a Zephyrian world. His soldiers wore powered armor that made them nearly invincible. The suits were powered by microfusion reactors and equipped with weapons that could punch through any known armor. "Remember what they did to our people," Sam told his troops as they prepared to drop onto the planet Zephyr Prime. "These creatures hunted our children for sport. They made necklaces from human fingers. Show them what happens when they mess with the wrong species." The Marines dropped from orbit in individual pods, landing across the planet's surface like a meteor shower. Zephyrian defenders fired everything they had at the incoming humans, but their weapons barely scratched the human armor. Sam's first squad landed outside a Zephyrian military complex. The aliens had built massive walls and energy barriers to protect their base. The humans walked through the defenses like they weren't there. "This is easier than training exercises," reported Sergeant Ben Rogers over the comm system. "Their best weapons can't even slow us down." The Zephyrian soldiers inside the base panicked as humans appeared in their corridors. These aliens had grown used to hunting defenseless human civilians. Fighting armed and armored human Marines was a very different experience. The humans moved through the base with terrible efficiency. Every Zephyrian who had participated in the colony massacres was identified and captured. Others were given a choice: surrender or die. Admiral Blake received reports from across the galaxy as human fleets struck Zephyrian positions. The aliens' traditional battle tactics, developed over millions of years of warfare, proved useless against human adaptability. "The enemy keeps trying the same strategies," reported Captain Jake Morrison from his cruiser Lightning. "They form standard battle lines, use predictable attack patterns, and follow their ancient military doctrine. They can't adapt when we change tactics mid-battle. Human ships moved with coordination that amazed even their own crews. While alien fleets needed centralized command structures to function, human captains could operate independently while maintaining perfect tactical unity. The Zephyrian High Command sent desperate messages to the Galactic Council, begging for help against the human advance. Council Speaker Vex called an emergency session to address what he termed human aggression. Ambassador John Parker attended the council meeting, but his role had changed completely. He was no longer asking for justice or pleading for understanding. Now he was delivering ultimatums. The Zephyrian Empire has requested council intervention against human military operations, Speaker Vex announced. They claim that humans are using illegal weapons and violating galactic warfare conventions. John stood calmly at the human podium. The sacred truce of Kepler Station is no longer in effect. Humanity is not bound by council regulations on military technology or warfare methods. The Altarian delegate clicked his mandibles angrily. "Humans are destroying the established order. Their weapons are too advanced. Their tactics too aggressive." "You're complaining that we're too effective at war?" John asked with dark amusement. "Perhaps you should have considered that before you approved the massacre of our civilians." The Centauri ambassador, Krell, tried a different approach. "Surely humanity does not wish to be seen as the aggressor species. The galaxy values peace and stability." John activated a holographic display showing footage from the colony attacks. Images of burned human cities and murdered children filled the chamber. "This is your peace," John said quietly. "This is your stability. Our people died while you debated politics and worried about maintaining the status quo." Dr. Amy Foster had joined Admiral Blake's fleet as a tactical advisor. Her knowledge of alien psychology helped human commanders predict enemy behavior with frightening accuracy. "The Zephyrians are requesting reinforcements from their homeworld," she reported. "They're also trying to form an alliance with the Helix Federation and the Valdorian Empire." Admiral Blake studied the tactical projections. "Let them gather their forces. The more enemies we face at once, the faster we can end this war. Engineer." Lucy Wright had been working on improvements to the quantum engines. Her new designs allowed human ships to perform maneuvers that defied alien understanding of physics. "Admiral, I've solved the multi-dimensional jump problem," she announced excitedly. "We can now appear inside enemy formations, fire, and disappear before they can react." The first test of the new technology came during a battle in the Rigel system. A massive Zephyrian fleet was moving to attack human positions when Admiral Blake's forces appeared in the middle of their formation. The alien ships found themselves surrounded by enemies that had materialized from nowhere. Before they could reorganize their battle lines, half their fleet was destroyed. The surviving ships fled in panic, broadcasting warnings about ghost ships that could appear and disappear at will. Captain Santos used her stealth destroyer to infiltrate the Zephyrian homeworld's orbital defenses. The planet was protected by massive space stations and weapons platforms that had never been breached in their species' history. She destroyed 3 orbital platforms before the Zephyrians even knew they were under attack. The alien defense network, designed to stop traditional fleet assaults, was helpless against a single invisible ship. Colonel Sam Hayes led his Marines in an assault on the planet's surface. The Zephyrian capital city was surrounded by energy, shields, and defended by their best troops. The humans dropped directly through the shields using personal teleportation devices. The Zephyrian defenders found themselves fighting enemies who could appear anywhere, strike without warning, and vanish before counterattacks could be organized. "This isn't warfare," one captured Zephyrian officer told his interrogators. "This is hunting. You humans hunt us the way we hunted your people." "Now you understand," Colonel Hayes replied. "The difference is that we're better at it." The Zephyrian Emperor himself appeared on galactic communication networks, making a public surrender offer. His species, which had ruled 300 star systems for millennia, was begging for mercy after less than a year of war with humanity. "We acknowledge our mistakes," the Emperor broadcast across the galaxy. "We ask for negotiations and a return to peaceful relations." Admiral Blake received the surrender offer while his fleet prepared to assault the Zephyrian homeworld. He forwarded the message to Earth and waited for President Sullivan's response. The president's answer came within hours. "Tell the Zephyrian Emperor that humanity will accept his surrender under the following conditions: complete disarmament of their military, trials for all war criminals involved in the colony massacres, and reparations to the families of every human they murdered." She paused before adding the final requirement. "And they will publicly acknowledge that their species committed acts of genocide against innocent civilians. The galaxy needs to understand what happens when someone breaks a truce with humanity." The Zephyrian Empire, which had existed for over 1 year after humanity withdrew from the sacred truce, Fleet Admiral Chris Thompson commanded the largest human military force ever assembled. The Great Liberation Fleet stretched across 3 star systems, with over 2,000 ships prepared for the next phase of operations. "Intelligence reports confirm it," announced Director Paul Anderson during the fleet's morning briefing. "The Altarian Empire, Centauri Federation, and Helix Collective have formed the Grand Alliance. They're mobilizing every military asset to stop our expansion." Chris studied the tactical displays showing enemy fleet movements. The aliens were finally taking humanity seriously as a threat, but their response revealed how little they understood about human capabilities. "They're making the same mistake as the Zephyrians," observed General Karen Miller, who was coordinating ground operations across 12 sectors. "They think this is a traditional war where the largest fleet wins." Captain Nina Rodriguez commanded a battle group composed entirely of survivors from the destroyed colonies. Her crews had volunteered for the most dangerous missions, driven by memories of their murdered families and friends. "Admiral, we've reached the Altarian border worlds," Nina reported from her flagship Retribution. "The aliens have evacuated their civilian populations and turned these planets into fortress worlds." Chris nodded approvingly. Unlike the aliens, humans made careful distinctions between military targets and civilian populations. The Liberation Fleet's mission was to free oppressed peoples, not to commit genocide. Dr. Tony Kim had continued developing new weapons systems throughout the campaign. His latest creation was a weapon that could disable entire fleets without destroying them, allowing human forces to capture alien vessels intact. "The stasis field generators are ready for deployment," Tony announced. "We can freeze enemy ships in time, board them safely, and examine their technology." Engineer Lucy Wright monitored the quantum engines that allowed human fleets to maintain supply lines across impossible distances. While alien armies struggled to coordinate operations across single-star systems, humans managed simultaneous campaigns throughout the galaxy. "Our logistics network is operating at 96% efficiency," Lucy reported. "We can maintain full military operations on 15 fronts while expanding to new theaters." The first major engagement with the Grand Alliance occurred in the Vega system. 3,000 alien ships from multiple species formed the largest battle fleet in galactic history. They waited in defensive positions, confident that their numbers would overwhelm any human force. Admiral Blake's strike force appeared directly in the center of the alien formation. 200 human ships materialized among 3,000 enemy vessels, but the aliens' numerical advantage became a weakness as they struggled to fire without hitting their own allies. The battle lasted only 20 minutes. Human weapons systematically disabled alien ships while avoiding friendly fire through precise targeting systems. The Grand Alliance's mighty fleet surrendered without inflicting significant damage on the humans. Captain Santos used her stealth destroyer to infiltrate the Altarian homeworld during the battle. Her mission was to gather evidence of the conspiracy that had led to the colony massacres. She found more than evidence. In the Altarian government archives, she discovered files, detailing centuries of oppression against dozens of species. The peaceful galactic civilization had been built on slavery, genocide, and systematic exploitation. "Admiral, you need to see this," Santos transmitted to Fleet Admiral Thompson. "The Grand Alliance species have been running slave operations for thousands of years. They've exterminated at least 30 intelligent species that refuse to submit. The files revealed that the galaxy's elder species maintained their power by preventing younger civilizations from developing advanced technology. Any species that showed too much promise was either enslaved or destroyed." Colonel Sam Hayes led liberation operations on worlds that had been enslaved for millennia. His Marines found conditions worse than anything humans had imagined. Entire species had been bred into servitude, with their natural intelligence suppressed through genetic modification. "The Klepton species used to be as smart as humans," Sam reported after liberating their homeworld. "The Altarians modified their DNA to make them docile and obedient. They've been used as manual labor for 3,000 years. Human medical teams worked to reverse the genetic damage inflicted on enslaved species. Dr. Amy Foster led research teams that developed treatments to restore natural intelligence and physical capabilities to the victims. It will take generations to fully heal the damage," Amy reported to Earth. "But these people can be free again. They just need time and support." Director Paul Anderson's intelligence network had infiltrated every major alien government. Human agents discovered that the conspiracy against humanity went back to the very beginning of First Contact. The aliens never intended the sacred truce to be permanent, Paul briefed the senior command staff. Their plan was to keep humanity contained for a few centuries while they studied our weaknesses. Then they would eliminate us completely. The evidence showed that dozens of accidents and natural disasters that had struck human colonies over the years were actually alien sabotage operations. Thousands of humans had died in attacks that were blamed on equipment failures or cosmic phenomena. General Karen Miller coordinated the most complex military operation in human history. She managed simultaneous campaigns across 30 star systems while maintaining precision that amazed even her own staff. "The key is that humans don't need rigid command structures," she explained to alien military observers who had requested to study human tactics. "Our soldiers can adapt to changing situations without waiting for orders from headquarters." The alien military leaders couldn't understand how human forces maintained coordination across such vast distances without centralized control. Their own armies fell apart when communication links were disrupted, but human units continued operating effectively even when completely isolated. Ambassador Lisa Morgan had replaced John Parker as humanity's diplomatic representative, but her role was very different from traditional diplomacy. She didn't negotiate with the alien governments that had betrayed humanity. Instead, she offered protection to the species that had been oppressed by those governments. "The Corvan people have requested human protection," Lisa reported to President Sullivan. "They've been enslaved by the Centauri Federation for 800 years. They want to join our liberation campaign." Similar requests came from dozens of species across the galaxy. Civilizations that had suffered under alien rule for millennia saw humanity as their chance for freedom. Captain Nina Rodriguez led the assault on the Centauri capital world. Her battle group included ships crewed by liberated aliens who fought alongside their human rescuers. "This is for every person who died in slavery," Nina announced as her forces engaged the Centauri defense fleet. "This is for every species they destroyed because it might threaten their power." The battle for the Centauri homeworld became a symbol of the liberation campaign. Humans and their alien allies fought side by side against oppressors who had ruled through fear and violence for thousands of years. Dr. Tony Kim's new weapons proved devastating against the Centauri fleet. The stasis field generators froze entire squadrons of enemy ships, allowing liberation forces to board them and free the slave crews who had been forced to fight for their masters. Engineer Lucy Wright achieved a breakthrough that changed the nature of warfare itself. Her new quantum engines allowed human ships to exist in multiple locations simultaneously, making them effectively impossible to destroy. "We can engage enemy fleets from several different universes at once," she explained to the astounded command staff. "They can't fight enemies that exist in dimensions they can't even detect." The Grand Alliance began to collapse as member species realized they were fighting a war they could not win. The Helix Collective surrendered after losing their entire military fleet in a single engagement. The Valdorian Empire offered unconditional surrender rather than face human forces directly. Fleet Admiral Thompson received surrender offers from 17 different species, but his response was consistent. Humanity would accept surrender only from governments that agreed to completely restructure their societies and face trials for their crimes. "We're not here to conquer the galaxy," he announced in a broadcast to all alien species. "We're here to free it. Any species that wants to keep slaves, oppress other civilizations, or maintain power through violence will be removed." The message was clear. The old galactic order, based on hierarchy and oppression, was ending. In its place, humans were building something based on freedom and equality. Captain Santos completed her reconnaissance of the remaining hostile territories. Her stealth destroyer had mapped every enemy position and identified the locations of concentration camps where enslaved species were held. "Admiral, I've found the central slave processing facility," she reported to Fleet Admiral Thompson. "It's hidden in the Omega Nebula, where sensors can't detect it easily. They're holding over 50 million beings from dozens of species. The facility represented everything evil about the old GA. 3 years had passed since the sacred truce was broken, and President Marcus Johnson stood before the new Galactic Assembly. The massive chamber buzzed with voices speaking hundreds of different languages as representatives from over 1,000 species took their seats. The old council chambers, where 47 species had once decided the fate of the galaxy, had been demolished. In its place stood this new building where every intelligent species, no matter how small or technologically primitive, had an equal voice. "Members of the Assembly," Marcus began, his words translated simultaneously into every known language. "We gather today to sign the new Galactic Compact, a document that will ensure the freedom and dignity of all intelligent life." Admiral Sarah Mitchell watched from the observation deck, her uniform bearing the insignia of the Galactic Peacekeeping Force. The organization she commanded included humans and aliens working together as equals, protecting worlds that had once been considered expendable. "Hard to believe how much has changed," she murmured to Captain Danny Cooper, who stood beside her. His ship, the Unity, was crewed by former enemies who had embraced the new order. 3 years ago, I was fighting Zephyrians," Danny replied. "Now, my weapons officer is a reformed Zephyrian who lost his family in their civil war. He's one of the best soldiers I've ever served with. The transformation hadn't been easy. Many alien species had struggled to understand concepts like individual rights and democratic governance after millions of years under hierarchical systems. Dr. Alex Chen led the Cultural Rehabilitation Program, helping former oppressor species learn to function in the new galaxy. His teams worked patiently with aliens who had never imagined that different species could be equals. The Altarians are making real progress," Alex reported to the Assembly during his presentation. "Their younger generation has embraced democratic principles. They're working to make amends for their species' history of slavery." Not all aliens had adapted successfully. Judge Rebecca Turner presided over the War Crimes Tribunal, where the leaders responsible for millennia of oppression faced justice. The trials were broadcast across the galaxy, establishing new standards for accountability. "The defendant stands accused of ordering the extermination of the Keltorian species," Judge Turner announced during one of the sessions. "The evidence shows that 2 billion intelligent beings were murdered simply because they refused to submit to Centauri rule. The trials revealed the full horror of the old galactic system. Entire species had been wiped out for showing too much intelligence or independence. Others had been enslaved for so long that they had forgotten their own history and culture. Captain Nina Rodriguez commanded the Memorial Fleet, human ships dedicated to honoring the victims of galactic oppression. Her crews had become experts at locating mass graves and identifying the remains of destroyed civilizations. "We've found the ruins of the Thanos homeworld," she reported to the assembly. "The archaeological evidence confirms that they were eliminated. By the Helix Collective 3,000 years ago, they had developed mathematics and art that surpassed anything the galaxy had seen. Human historians worked to reconstruct the lost knowledge and culture of extinct species. Museums and memorial sites were built to ensure that the victims of the old system would never be forgotten. Engineer Lucy Wright had revolutionized galactic transportation with her quantum highway network. Species that had been isolated for millennia could now travel safely between star systems in minutes instead of years. The network is completely decentralized, she explained to the Assembly's Technology Committee. No single species or government can control it. Every world has equal access to trade, communication, and cultural exchange. The economic transformation was as dramatic as the political one. Species that had been forced to provide tribute to their overlords now traded freely with each other. Worlds that had been strip-mined by alien corporations began to recover their natural resources. Dr. Amy Foster led medical missions to planets that had been devastated by centuries of exploitation. Her teams used advanced human technology to heal environmental damage and restore ecosystems. "The Vorthak homeworld is showing signs of recovery," she reported. "The toxic waste left by Altarian mining operations is being neutralized. In 50 years, this world will be habitable again." Similar restoration projects were underway throughout the galaxy. Humans shared their environmental technology freely, helping damaged worlds return to their natural state. Fleet Admiral Chris Thompson had disbanded most of the human military forces, but he maintained rapid response units to deal with any species that tried to return to the old ways. "We've detected slave trading operations in the Outer Rim," he reported to President Johnson. "A group of Centauri extremists is trying to rebuild their empire by enslaving primitive species." The response was swift and decisive. Human peacekeeping forces arrived within hours, freed the slaves, and arrested the criminals. The message was clear: the galaxy would never return to its dark past. Captain Maria Santos had transitioned from military operations to exploration missions. Her stealth destroyer, now renamed Explorer, searched for new species that might need protection or assistance. "We've made first contact with the Zillion Confederation," she reported from the Galactic Rim. "They're a peaceful species that's been hiding from galactic civilization for over 1,000,000 years. They're interested in joining the Assembly." First, contact protocols had changed dramatically under human leadership. Instead of conquest or exploitation, new species were offered protection, technology, and the chance to develop at their own pace. Colonel Sam Hayes commanded the peacekeeping. Marines, elite units that specialized in protecting vulnerable species from those who would harm them. His soldiers were volunteers from dozens of different species, united by their commitment to justice. "The Corvanian refugees have been safely relocated," Sam reported, after completing a mission to protect survivors of a genocidal campaign. "The perpetrators are in custody and will face trial." The new Galactic Compact was more than just a treaty. It was a constitution that established fundamental rights for all intelligent beings. Every species, regardless of size or technological level, was guaranteed freedom from slavery, the right to self-determination, and protection from aggression. Ambassador Lisa Morgan had worked for 2 years with representatives from every known species to create the document. The negotiations had been complex, as many aliens struggled to understand concepts that humans took for granted. The right to individual freedom was the most difficult concept to establish, she explained to the Assembly. Many species had never imagined that individuals could have rights separate from their government or social group. The compact also established the Universal Bill of Rights, guaranteeing freedom of thought, expression, and movement for all intelligent beings. It outlawed slavery, genocide, and the destruction of civilizations for any reason. President Johnson read the final words of the compact to the assembled delegates. "We, the intelligent species of this galaxy, commit ourselves to the principles of freedom, equality, and justice. We reject the darkness of our past and embrace a future where all beings can live in peace and dignity." One by one, representatives from over 1,000 species signed the historic document. Former enemies stood side by side, committing their civilizations to a new way of existence. The Zephyrian representative, a young female named Kira, signed with tears in her eyes. "My species committed terrible crimes in the name of power and tradition," she said. "We pledge to spend the rest of our existence making amends for our actions." Similar declarations came from other species that had participated in the old system of oppression. Many had undergone complete social revolutions, overthrowing the leaders who had committed crimes against other civilizations. The ceremony concluded with President Johnson delivering humanity's promise to the galaxy. "We did not seek to become the guardians of galactic civilization," he said. "This role was forced upon us when those we trusted betrayed that trust." He looked out at the diverse assembly of beings who now work together as equals. "But we accept this responsibility willingly. As long as there are those who would oppress others, as long as there are species that need protection, humanity will stand guard. We will ensure that the darkness of the past never returns." Captain Danny Cooper prepared his ship for departure as the ceremony ended. The Unity was bound for the galactic frontier, where new species were still making first contact with the expanding civilization. "Course laid in for the Andromeda approach," he announced to his mixed-species crew. "We have reports of possible intelligent signals from unexplored space." His weapons officer, the reformed Zephyrian warrior Korth, monitored the ship's defensive systems. "All systems ready, Captain. If we encounter any threats to the new species, we are prepared to protect them." The galaxy that had once been ruled by fear and oppression now hummed with activity as free species traded, communicated, and explored together. The old barriers between civilizations had been replaced with the quantum highway network that connected every world. Dr. Tony Kim worked on peaceful applications of the weapons technology that had won the Liberation War. His latest project was a shield system that could protect entire planets from natural disasters. "We're installing the planetary defense network around the